All right, we are recording. We are going to be working on, let me get my screen shared. Okay, so we are doing forms, graphics, media. There's an example and a reference section. So that's this down here is where we're going to do, we're not going to do APIs. You don't really need to worry about that. We can look at these down here for examples. Now I have a document I am going to go through. I will not post an exact document replica of these are all the tags you need, because I know people are just going to go out there, copy that, and they won't even look anything up. So I'm going to have that on there so you guys can actually walk through and be like, these are the tags that you're going to need to put on that document that's due on Sunday. It's not very hard. And you can always go back and watch the video if you have any questions about it. But I just don't want it to be a super easy copy paste assignment. So, I mean, it's as it is, it's not particularly difficult. Okay, so before I get started on HTML forms, were there any questions or problems anyone had for us for tonight? Okay, I'm assuming by the dead quiet that means no. So we will start in with HTML forms. I'm giving you a little caveat when it comes to cybersecurity. HTML forms, if they are not done correctly, are one of the easiest things to be hacked. So this is what they're talking about. HTML forms are what they use to collect user input, and it's usually sent over to a server for processing. So here you go. This is an example of what that looks like. All right, so you see this one's your form. You have your label, input, sorry, cat claws in the top of my knee. And then you have certain types of input that are allowed. This is a very simple one. And then basically a button, and you tell the button what to do and how to be formed from there. All right, so the form element is what's used to create an HTML form for user input. So like everything else, you have your beginning and your end tags. Hold on one second. I need to turn on my ad blocker. Let me get that full. Oh. Okay. And then, so form, and then we have input elements within the form. So you can do text fields, checkboxes, radio buttons, submit buttons, and all sorts of other things. If you want to look at every single one of them, there's an HTML forms elements link right here. And it just gives you everything in a nice little list. So the input element is the first one we're going to start with. And that is the most used form element. Input element can be displayed in lots of ways, but it's depending on the type attribute. So there's some types down here. You have your text, which displays a single line of text input field. Your radio, those are your little radio buttons for selecting one of many choices. Checkboxes, which displays a little checkbox for selecting 0 or more of many choices. Don't get in a fight on top of me. You have your submit, which displays your submit button. And then your just what's called the clickable button. Okay, that's not bad. I know. Okay, next. We have text fields. So input type text, and that defines the single line of text that we were talking about. And then, so here you see form label, F name, that's the form name, first name, and this is what we have here. So there's your label that it's talking about for the F name. Input type text, ID, F name, and then they have this. So hopefully, I mean, this is just super basic. So hopefully this is making sense. And then you have your little paragraph spacers, and like everything else, it's the HTML body. And as you can see, the H. Yeah, type equals show. Yeah. Okay, does that make sense? Any questions? All right, next we have the label element. And you saw that up in the above. This defines, the tag defines a label for many form elements. You can use it for screen readers. Remember me talking about that? Because a lot of times the screen reader reads that label out loud. And so if you don't put a label in there, it'll just be like random button or whatever, you know, it gets really confused on a lot of those. It also helps users with clicking on very small regions, because when the user clicks the text on the label element, it will toggle the radio button or checkbox buttons as well. The for attribute for the label tag should be equal to the ID attribute of the input element, and that binds them together. So let's look here. So input type radio, as you can see, you have little dots there. And then label for HTML, and then here's what's shown. That's in between. Input type, it's saying, okay, the input type here is radio. ID is CSS. And then you see the values, and then there's the label, and then here's the input type, and then there's the label. Does that make sense? And I'm assuming if you're quiet that it makes sense. Okay. If you're quiet and you don't ask questions and later you go, that doesn't make sense, I'm going to say, well, why didn't you say anything? So, yeah, I've heard there's quite a few people that have been sick. So I understand if your brain is working slow. That's why I'm recording. You can go back and watch this later. Okay, so checkboxes. This is one of those 0 or more options for a limited number of choices. So it's just easier to show you guys. So here you have your input type checkbox, and you see you have your little checkbox here. And then below it, you have, okay, this is what I want it to look like. There's the label. Checkbox labeled, you know, basically you have what it is, and then you have the label for it. Well, thank you. I do like being the smart one in the group, but there are times when I feel like the dumb one in the group, especially when I'm not feeling well. And frequently when you don't feel well, you don't get enough sleep, which causes problems with not being smart. So I totally get it. All right, next. Submit button. This is the input type submit. So label, and there's your F name, your label, input type, text, F name, and then as you can see, there's your section for the first one right here. So when the screen reader reads it, it says, "Mees, hello." This one here, it says, okay, this says, what's your first name? Type John. What's your next name? Last name's Joe. That's just an example. Stop. And then input type on the bottom there, submit, and then value, submit. The value here, if I'm remembering correctly, is, so the value is what you change to change the label on your button. But usually you have to bind it. If you want it saved somewhere within, this one's just showing you a basic PHP. Usually you have to say this information needs to go to, and then you bind it to like a database. This is, I think, just showing you. For this one, it doesn't do. See, it just shows you this, and all it does is basically show back to you exactly what you put in. So if you wanted to put this into a database, you would have to enter different sections in there for like SQL and things in order for this information to go into those tables. So right now they're just showing you the basics of how that works instead of how to bind it with the database. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. Name attribute input. All right, so this is basically the same thing. So there's your label, first name. Stop fighting over the kettles. The queen was here first and she's not been feeling well, so she will smack you in the head. There's your input type, and it says, okay, the type of thing that I'm looking for is text. ID, F name, and here they actually put a value in. You don't have to put a value in there. You can leave that blank. Just a lot of people put something in there to give them kind of a prompt or an idea. And then again, there's your submit button, and there's your section here. This will not teach you how servers or processing input, blah, blah, blah. It's just a, this is, yeah, this one right here is my, my sweet baby that I've had for, she's 10, she'll be 11 this year. Her name is Benny, B-I-N-N-I, because when she was 24 hours old, they thought she died and she was in a trash bin. Hence the name Benny. I know it's a little dark, but she had hypothermia and she was so stubborn that she decided, I want to live. She was only 2 ounces when she was born. And I have had her since she was 24 hours old. And she is just bonded to me. She's also the queen of the castle here. So, and she has not been feeling particularly well. So she's been cuddly as heck. So, but she loves people. So don't be surprised if you see her around on my chest, because that's her, I'm going to cuddle whether you want it or not. Especially if she knows I haven't been feeling well. All right. HTML form attributes. So next one is the action attribute. This one defines the action to be performed when the form is submitted. So usually the form data is sent to a file on the server when the user clicks the submit button, like we were talking about. In the example below, the form data is sent to a file action called action page PHP. This file contains a server-side script that handles the form data. So let's see this. So label, like we had there, there's a first name. What do we have there? We have an input of text and our IDs. And then we have our suggestions. And then when you hit submit, oh, this is just basically the same thing here. And then up here, it's saving it to that page. Okay. If your action attribute is omitted, it's set to whatever page you're currently on. The target attribute, so this is where you were asked, where I was telling you have to set it to a database or something like that. You can set it to target attributes to where to display the response, or you can set it to one of the following values. You can go blank, self, parent, top, or frame name. Blank is the response is displayed in a new window or tab. Self, it's put in your same window. Parent, it's displayed in the parent frame. Top, it's displayed in the full body of the window. And then frame name, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get your tail. The response is displayed in the name iframe, named iframe. So remember us going through iframes. Did we do iframes We did, didn't we? Yes, we did. So when we talked about iframes, it'll be within that iframe section that you pointed to. So here's an example. So we submit the results, and then for this one, we want to put it in. Here's our action page, and then that's our target that it's talking about right here. So that, see how it pops it up into a new page? That's what it does there. No, sorry, that's the other page. Method attribute. This one specifies HTTP method to be used when submitting the form data. So form data can be sent as URL variables with the get method, or as post transactions with method post. The default HTTP method when submitting data is the get method. So let's show you what that looks like. So basically, these are all just, see this up here at the top, you're just adding more pieces to the puzzle as we go. So when you hit submit, it'll pop it up, and it's using that get method in order to put that out there. And this one is using post, and that just uses the post method. And I think, hold on. No. Whoa, sorry, I was trying to minimize that so I could actually show you guys the developer tools. See if it, there we go. Okay, so can you see the developer tools window? So submit, this is just showing you what these look like. There's your F name. I thought it might be easier so you could see kind of what these look like in the back end. Gotcha. Okay. So, and that's why I like these. Here's what we do. Here's what we're trying to do. Go click it. That's kind of the nice thing about the W3 stuff when you're doing HTML. So there's some notes on gets and posts. Appends the form data to the URL in the name or value pairs. Never use get to send sensitive data. So basically, you don't want to be using like usernames, passwords, things like that with get data. It's visible. It's plain text. It's not something you want to use for that. It's useful for form submissions where you want to do like bookmark results. It's just for short, non-secure data like query strings in Google. Post appends the form data inside the body of the HTTP request, which submitted the form data is not shown inside the URL. Post has no size limitations and can be used to send large amounts of data. Form submissions with post cannot be bookmarked. So what they mean by bookmarked is, let me go show you with the get. So when you look up at that, you see where it says action PHP F name John Doe, you can bookmark that whole thing because it just dumps everything out in that. Whereas when you use this one, which is the post, you see how it doesn't put it on the end there? That way it doesn't, you can't go bookmark all of those results. So that's why it says, don't put secure stuff in this one. This one is a little bit better than, I mean, neither of them are as good as using some of the more secure methods, but of the two, remember the get is just pure, like plain text, absolutely unsecured. Don't use it for anything that you're not okay with everyone knowing. Autocomplete attribute. So this is kind of one of those can be good, can be bad things. It specifies whether a form should have autocomplete on or off. When it's on, the browser automatically completes values based on values the user has entered before. So there we go. And on this one, oh, hold on 1 second. I have a kitty that's going to the vet and I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Okay, so on the autocomplete attribute, so see how you can see that it's come up in other ones that I've typed my name a lot. And obviously there are websites that I've used that have this option. This can be good. And there's a bunch of things that comes in there that, like you saw that whole list. You have the possible security problem if someone's reading your screen of you just shared a whole bunch of stuff that you may not want to share on the bed. So yeah, so like I said, those can be good. Sometimes they can be bad. The no validate attribute. Sometimes I run them together. You can stick that on my bed. And this is the attribute that indicates that the input is not validated. Now, I don't like the no validate attribute, but that is because it is really, really easy to use this attribute for all the wrong things. So this specifies that any data that's input from here will not be validated. And that means that you can input basically anything you want. So if you have hooked this to an SQL database, and you have, let's say, you have no validate on, and you have just left yourself open for an SQL injection attack. So that's one of the reasons I'm not a big fan of this tag. I can understand why it's there, and it can be good in some cases, I suppose, but it's one of those ones that makes me very wary. So you guys understand why that one would be a little bit uncomfortable for us as cybersecurity people? Yeah, Gwen's got it. All right. So this is just our whole big thing of HTML form and elements. So input, we talked about that. Label, select, that's this one where you have a drop-down menu. So when you do a select ID, this basically says this menu is the cars menu. And these are the options that you should put in this menu. Yeah, open doors equal back. Exactly. So this is what that particular one is using for the select elements. And the label elements we've gone over a couple of times. Option, again, this is just super simple. Visible values. So this leaves them, instead of having a drop down, it allows them to scroll up and down. And then this will give you the size attribute, allows how many of those are actually visible within your scroll window. So say, okay, this is my cars menu. I want people to be able to see 3 of these options and at a time. So let's say, okay, I want to add another option. Somebody have a car type for me? see, what do we got here? We got VW, we got Tesla, okay. And a cheat. Now, copy and pasting, just make sure that when you copy and paste, that you double check everything. And here we'll find out if. Okay, so we can see we've got a few more. We have the Volvo, Saab, Fiat, and you can see you got to scoot down, but it only ever shows 3. Now, if we decide, okay, I want to do, let's do 4. There we go. We just did that. Now, maybe you want to do 2. There. And you make them scroll a bit more. Does that make sense? Yeah, you can, if you want to be really rude about it. Yeah, now that one just takes up a huge amount. But yeah, you can do any number there. There you go. You got 5. So there are lots of different examples there that you can use. You can use what's called the multiple attribute, which allows your users to select more than one value. So this is just basically like what we were just using, but then you do should they do it wrong? It should be allowing you to select more than one value. I thought there was a oh yeah, I was gonna say, is there yeah, you just have to use control keys. And there you go. I'm used to some of the other stuff that'll click here and you can just click additional ones, but it just wants the keys. There's a text area element. So this one gives you your little paragraph, and then you have your little sample text and things like that. So I know we've all seen this. You have your rows and column attributes, and that just gives them how much you want to allow them to write. So there's also, you can do the width and height instead of doing the other stuff. And you can see here that it does that instead of going purely by rows and columns, which you can see here. Is this one said, okay, they get 10 rows and 30 columns, whereas this one says, that's great. Let's give them 200 pixels and 600 by 600 pixels. And there you go. Personally, I prefer to do the width and height, the style version, because that's one of the ones that you can throw on your CSS. So you can use the cascading style sheet, the external one, or you can use the one like this. Button elements. There are tons of stuff you can do with buttons. So there are, this one's a hello world. See how it just pops up. Did you guys see the pop-up? Did it actually show it for you? Yep, okay. So yeah, it pops up that little hello world, on click alert equals, and then you tell it what you want to put here. And then this tells you, okay, that's what that's going to look like. Basically, yeah. There are a lot more that you can do. You can do colors and all sorts of stuff on there, but that is the simplest thing is an on click. Then there are what are called field set and legend elements. So the field set element is used to group related data in a form. The legend element defines a caption for field set elements. Let me show you what this looks like. So grouping form data within a field set, and you see the field set would be the whole thing around it. Field set element is used to group your related data. So you have this here, and the legend element defines a caption for the field set element. That's this one right here. So you see there, this is the form. Inside the form, we have the field set. That's everything here. And then within the field set, you want to tell it, okay, so what is this? What is all this data? Well, that is this. And then you have your labels and your text inputs and your little button. Does that make sense? I know that we've all seen that, but that's how they do this. Okay. Data list element. This specifies a list of predefined options for an input element. So you get like your drop-down list of predefined options, and then the list attribute of the input element must refer to an ID attribute of the data list element. So let me show you what this actually looks like. Oh, hold on a second. Is that supposed to be? I think that's for me. Yeah, just stick it over on there and I'll open it. So you have your form, input list, data list, and then you have options, and you see how you click there, and you have all your different ones that it pops up here. Okay, I want to do that. Okay, now we can click this. Does that look familiar? I'm sure all of you have run into that at some point or another. So that's how they do those option values like that. Okay, output element. Perform a calculation. So this is your, this is very basic math type programming. Perform a calculation and show the result in an output element. And this is also, you'll see this kind of thing that's very similar when you do things for like, put this information in and output it to an SQL database. It's similar to this. Okay, so form action, output, and this one's doing an X value. So basically it's allowing you to make this little slider bar here. And then you have your input range ID, and then you do, there's your little adjuster, and then you hit submit. And then there's your A was this, and basically A is the amount this way, B is the amount this way. So that's what the slider here where it says input range ID A on the top, and then B. So basically it's saying as you move it this way, it changes this. As you move it this way, it changes this. And then when you hit submit, it tells you what your A and your B is. Now, this is the only way that math makes sense to me is when it's put in some form of applicable to technology stuff. So no, I will not be making you guys do something like this. I think this is mean. So I do not anticipate me to make you guys do calculators. All right. All right, as you can see, there are a ton of different input types. So text, we've gone through passwords. If you are doing passwords, you should not be using any of this. But this is a very basic example of what that is. And it's username, password, and then it shows here. And then the reason that it uses the password field is that it's masked. But really, if you're doing that, this is not encrypted. And yeah, no, I'm definitely not going to be doing that to you guys. No story problems. Because anytime they said story problems, I developed like an eye twitch in school. So I don't do that to people. So there's an input type submit. And that is basically, it defines a button that is listed for what will be submitted. Okay, so, and we've done that here. So we have, okay, this is our stuff and we are going to submit it. That's all that is. And this is just another example. There's an input type reset. So that's what happens when you get those, oh man, I messed up this whole thing and I need the option to clear this out. And on this one, because they actually have example text, a lot of places don't have this in them. They actually look like this. So let's say I type in this and go, oh shoot, no, I don't want that. And I hit reset and it'll clear it. That's the whole point there. Then there's our radio buttons, which we've gone through. Checkboxes, which we've seen, they just have little checkboxes. I'm just re-going through this so that you guys can see it all again. This is our click me and it pops up a little message. For this alert for buttons, there are entire sections on everything that you can do for buttons if you want to learn more about it. There's more stuff you can do. Input type color, as you can see, these are the ones that are where you get these. And it uses that. And remember what I said about using hash values? Hash values are your friend. Date. So this is how you make those date fields. So you have your label, input type, date, and then you have your ID, and then it puts your nice little box here that allows you to put that information in. You can do a min-max attribute, which is, you know how when you do those big reports, well, you can do restriction, be like, I want everything from this to this, and that's how they do that. So you have your date min and date max, and then you just change things from here and then hit submit. Date time local, and this is that date time dash local is how that pops up. Input type email. And this is, see how mine pops up a whole bunch of different ones I've had to enter. And that just basically pops up your label, your information for emails. Images. And this one says, it's right here, it's that button, you know, whenever you see those image source, there's what your images, and then you set the heights and stuff. So if you don't want to do all the other things, you just want an actual like button image, this is how they set those. Type file. Okay, this is label for select a file. And then you hit that and it brings up your browser. And there's your choose file type, and you say file, and it helps you bring up those browse boxes. Input type hidden. So you have your first name, input type text, and then here you see the hidden custom ID, blah, blah, blah. That is not shown to the user, but the data is sent when your form is submitted. So let's say that you have set it up so that when they enter this, it automatically has a value, see that customer ID name, Maybe you also put some information in there that every person who enters that has an incremental number that happens every time they create they create their name. They're like, okay, my name's Bob Smith. I'm user 1. Tom Field, user 2. And it just randomly appends that number into their database and adds on there. That's how a lot of them will do a basic customer ID value. Input type month. So there's your month, B-Day month. Drops that down there and it's just the month. Numbers. This one just has numbers. Input restrictions. Okay, this is something we need to remember. Restricting what you do not want is just as important as allowing what you want in. Now, when you remember me talking about the cross-site injections and things like that, well, one of the ways that you can fight against those is by restricting your inputs. So here's your thing where you want input type, and that's what you want. You want a minimum of this, a maximum of this, and you can see that you have this right here gives you your list of things that you can do. So on the min, that specifies your minimum value of the input field. Max, that's your max that you want. Let's see, they did min max, step and value. Step specifies the legal number intervals for an input field, and value specifies the default value for an input field. Now, there are also ones that you can do that that will say there are certain, especially when you're working with SQL stuff, there are certain characters that you can say does not allow, like quote marks and things like that. So there's an example of what that does with your stuff on there. So does that make sense as to why you would want to limit what's turned in? Input type range. So that's the one that we looked at with the little range finder thing. Input type search, like your Google search bar. Tell, used for input fields that should contain your telephone numbers right there. Time. URLs right there. Weeks. And you can see it cuts out like a whole week there. All right. I think okay, so attributes. Don't worry, we're almost through. You have the read-only attribute. These work a lot like file attributes. So read-only specifies that the input field is read-only. So you can see read-only right there. See how I can't add anything to that one? That's what that means. Input disabled attribute specifies that any input field should be disabled. See how it's grayed out? That's how they do that. Size attribute, we've been through that a couple of times. So if you have like a 6-digit PIN versus a longer field for a name. Max length. So this one, max length 4, size 4 for your PIN, and then max length of 50 for your first name. That's just examples there. Min and max. So here's your dates and a quantity between 1 and 5. Multiple attributes, that's your one that allows you to enter more than one value. You can choose multiple files. Pattern, this specifies regular expression, input field values checked against when the form is submitted. It works with text, date, search, URL, telephones, email, and password. So as you can see here, text, country code, and then it's saying, okay, this is the pattern that we want. So if you put anything that's not like that in there, it goes, hey, that's not what I'm after. Placeholder is a short hint that describes expected value. See, that's grayed out, but it's an example. Not a good example for that one, but required attribute. You see that there? That's your username, and you have to put it in because there you go. Please fill out this field. Step attribute specifies legal number of intervals. So on this one, it does like 3 steps, and that's your points buckets. Autofocus. Let's see. Specifies the input field should automatically get focus when the page loads. So basically it focuses on that first. Height and width, we've been over that. List, okay, so this one's, you know, the here's are the different options. Okay, sounds good. I think she's in the bedroom. Oh, okay. Autocomplete, we've been through. Let's see, I don't think there's anything we missed off of here. Form. Okay, so that one. This one specifies the URL or file that will process the input when the form is submitted. So form action, label for input type, label, and then you see submit, and then that's where it's going to be put. So you notice how this one is where everything originally is stored, but when you do submit for this information, this is where it's going to be stored. Does that make sense? I know we're probably lagging, you guys are. Let's see. Form and type. This one specifies how the data should be encoded when submitted. So that's down here, multi-part / form data submitted as, and you can see there. And then there's this one, which does overrides the method attribute of the form. This works with the following inputs like submit and range. Form data can be set as a URL variable. So this one down here, are using the value submit is then that says, no, we don't want to do that. We want to do it using post. Form target. This one specifies a name or keyword that indicates where to display the response that is received after submitting the form. Form target blank. Remember how we were talking about how it opens up a new page? Well, that's what this one's saying. When it's submitted, it'll open up into a new window. No validate. This one specifies that input elements should not be validated when submitted. So it overrides no validate attribute in the form element. And that is it for there. So, okay, so these I'm just going to do a really quick. These are super simple, just if you guys want to learn how to do editing for images. You don't need to learn how to do JavaScript, but these are just like how to link and change different colors and things on there. SVG, I don't think you guys are going to be needing to use this one. SVG is used for line element drawing. Let's see. So multimedia. This one's your MPEG, AVI, like your movies and stuff. Here's your audio formats. Video. This is an example of using the video tag. So you can see here, it's like using the iframe tag. And you can see how it dumps it out over here. Here's your width and height, your source, and then you tell it what type you want and what codec you want. And then if it doesn't come up correctly, it'll do that. Your browser does not support video tag. You can also do what's called autoplay, which basically, honestly, I hate autoplay, but that's up to you guys. Autoplay automatically starts the videos when you open a web page. Muted after autoplay lets it start up, but it's muted. And then here's the different HTML video formats. And then you can see which browsers do or don't follow them. Usually most people use MP4 videos because, as you can see, those are supported most of the way around. Okay. You can do JavaScript. This is up to you, but as you can see, it's considerably more stuff. So for next week's HTML page project, if you decide that you want to do JavaScript, that is up to you. I do not expect you guys to do audio, but if you look in there, it does tell you that I want you guys to put a link to a video for a YouTube link in an iframe, which is seriously easy. And those are in here, and it tells you exactly how to do them. So that's basically the audio plugins, and then YouTube, exactly what I was talking about. So just like when you're doing a video from nice Bohemian Rhapsody by the Muppets, nice. So within an iframe, this is exactly how you do it. So pay attention, because this is part of your, I want you to put something like this in your project for next week. You can set it. Here's your iframe. Here's the width and height, and the source. Here is your YouTube link. That's exactly it. That's all you do. It's super easy. So you just throw that in there and it comes out like this.
Can you set up to autoplay on that and then also like set the starting volume?
Yeah, you can. You can if you want to. Remember that if you put the most annoying video possible, I'm the one that grades them. Although I do like the Muppets, so this one's hilarious to me. Rickroll use of memes, just nothing X-rated, please. That will get a talking to for you. So here's your YouTube with autoplay and muted. There's a YouTube loop, YouTube controls. So everything for YouTube is just under HTML media, YouTube, right there. Super easy. I actually like SpongeBob. I know this sounds weird. They did a study and they found that people's brain activity dropped when they were watching SpongeBob. And when I had severe anxiety attacks, I started watching that after reading that, and it was like, oh, that kind of shuts my brain down. And it actually worked. So I don't make fun of SpongeBob anymore. Oh, grumpy cat. So, okay, so next, I am going to share with you, if you look out on The content, you see the download and install VS Code. This is this nifty little thing. It's just download it for Windows. It's Visual Studio Code, and it allows you to create. It doesn't take very long at all, and there's a little link in there for. Let me share this. Okay, so this is where you download it from. And then this is what it looks like when it opens. I have, take note, this is exactly an example, cough, hint, of what you guys are going to want to do for your assignment. So the nice thing about this one is it's just basically a Visual Studio Lite type thing, and you can use this to create new. Hold on a second. Okay, so do a file, new text file, fill with template, HTML document, boom, there you go. You already got a big chunk of that already done. And when you're doing your assignment, you see how it has on here, this is just HTML tag list. I want your name and the date. It's super easy. So you see how next to each tag, there's a short sentence explaining what it is. This is exactly what I want you guys to do. And these are the tags I expect to see. I want your doc type. I want to see the HTML tag. I want to see the head, title. I want to see your meta tag, H1 tag, just talking about the header tags, the P tag, the BR with the line break tag, the HR, image, div, A or a href if you want to put it in like that, UL, OL, IL, or sorry, LI, not IL, table, and I want you guys to explain the table, TRTD. There's technically another one on that one, which is heading. So yeah, this one, it messed up some of the stuff on here. It'd be a good idea for you guys to explain some of the text styles, B, I, strong, sub, block quote, link, and you can see those down there. Form, which we just talked about, label, input, and footer. Now, we didn't use so much, we didn't talk so much about footer, but the footer is your tag that you see on the bottom of a website. So this is the whole thing. This is what I want you guys to turn in for 50 points on Sunday. So as you can see, it's not super hard. So if you've been paying attention and you're watching the video, you can go back, you can rewind the video, and you can see exactly what I want you to do. Don't, for the love of God, don't use an exact duplicate of what I do here. Write it in your own words. So yeah, and make sure that you're coherent, okay? Does that make sense to everyone? Yes, in your own words, please. It doesn't have to be like an, op-ed. It can be one sentence. Just I don't want to see an exact word for word duplication of what I just showed you. Okay. All right, I'm going to hit stop share. Now, I have, that is the end of the lecture portion for today. But do you guys have any questions? I know we've had some 255 issues, so I want to open up anything for that here too. But also, does anyone have any HTML questions? Anything they want me to run through with HTML with them right now? I'm gonna go ahead and no, I'm not going to redo my entire lecture. I'm going to stop this though, so you guys can watch the recording for the lecture later.